Well, I can't wait for MAGA to call this another activist judge, considering the decision to block the Trump administration from deporting a Venezuelan migrant under the Alien Enemies Act was just made by another Trump-appointed judge. Cue the meme.
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
The Supreme Court is blocking President Trump from invoking a centuries-old wartime law known as the Alien Enemies Act.
So the courts are basically telling you guys they think that the White House's policies, the president's policies, are in some way against the law. So why can't President Trump ask the Republicans that control the House and the Republicans that control the Senate just to make a new law?
Well, these laws have already been granted to the president by the Constitution and by laws that have been previously passed. I'll give you another example. For instance, we've been blocked in court for the revocation of visas from individuals who have the privilege of studying in the United States of America. Secretary of State Rubio has simply used his authority to revoke those visas, to revoke that privilege, and we've seen the courts try to block that. So if these judges want to be the Secretary of State or they want to be the president, they can run for office themselves. It should be the other way around. But all of the actions the president has taken rely on legal authorities that have already been granted to him by our nation's existing laws.
U.S. District Court Judge John Holcomb, a Trump appointee, ruled that those subject to deportation under the Alien Enemies Act have to be given a chance to challenge the move. Going on to say, quote, "The government is hereby preliminary enjoined and restrained from removing or transferring out of this district any member of the putative class pursuant to the proclamation pending further order of this court regarding the amount of notice and process that is due prior to removal." Process due process, right.
He says, I applied for asylum and I went to my scheduled hearing where they ask you about questions to see if you merit an asylum claim, and boom, I was detained. And of course he had the telltale sign which marks him incontrovertibly as a desperado member of Tren de Aragua, tattoos. So because he had tattoos, they took him into custody. And at that point, he brought a lawsuit on his behalf and on behalf of others.
Do you think a judge should just rubber stamp what your White House does? If not, what checks and balances do you think should be in place for this White House?
It is not the job of a district court judge to perform an individual green light or red light on every single policy that the president takes as the head of the executive branch. Just think about the premise baked into your question. Respectfully, Pam, you're saying that when the American people elect a president of the United States of America,
I'm not saying
well, it's the implication, who is the sole head of the executive branch. Well, let me finish. I will answer the question happily. But look, when you have these kinds of lazy assumptions built into questions, it makes it hard to have a constructive dialogue.
What is a lazy assumption? I said you all had to win.
You said is it my expectation?
I'm speaking.
You said is it my expectation? It's not just you. It's the whole media. In other words, when you hear a sentence like,
it is a completely fair question. You say judges rule against the White House.
And I will gladly answer it. When you say, do we think district court judges should rubber stamp each action? There is a premise that is built into that is absurd. The president is the sole head of the executive branch. He's the only officer in the entire government that's elected by the entire American people. Democracy cannot function. In fact, democracy does not exist at all if each action the president takes, foreign policy, diplomatic, military, national security, has to be individually approved by 700 district court judges. That's democracy. So if there's 15 communist crazy judges on the court, that each of them as a team working together can block and freeze each and every executive action.
Now, while this was a victory for due process, there was also a win in there for Donald Trump. Holcomb also said that the president has, quote, unlimited authority to invoke the Alien Enemies Act, which is being challenged in court separately.
Donald Trump wants to disappear U.S. citizens.
Homegrowns are next. The homegrowns, but you got to build about 5 more. It's not big enough.
This is illegal, unconstitutional, and un-American. And it has been un-American since 1776. The Declaration of Independence called the British king tyrannical for transporting Americans, quote, beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. It is ludicrous to to trust that the Trump regime will give Americans due process before it tries to deport them. The vast majority of the people already sent by the United States to a prison in El Salvador have no criminal record at all. Some are married to Americans. Some have children, like Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And Trump's team repeatedly lies to the public about Garcia, a man they admitted was sent due to an administrative error. They call him a gang member and terrorist with zero evidence, no trial, and no conviction of any crime whatsoever. Do you think they wouldn't deport you if you cross them? Every dictator in history has claimed they'll only use their powers to go after the worst of the worst. Every dictator in history has lied. If Trump can disappear green card holders for protesting war, he can disappear you. If he can disappear visa holders for criticizing him, he can disappear you. If he can disappear asylum seekers for tattoos, he can disappear you. We must speak out now, before there's no one left to speak out.
Monday's ruling came amidst a complaint by Darwin Antonio Arvelo Malan, a Venezuelan citizen being held at the US Immigration and Customs. In his lawsuit, he said he is a vocal dissident of the Venezuelan government, and so he was granted a permit to authorize him to work in the United States, pending the review of his asylum application. He was then arrested after he reported for a scheduled ICE check-in, which, as we've seen with countless videos circulating across the internet, is happening on the regular, where ICE are detaining people who are reporting for either check-ins or for their scheduled court date.
A mother and her child being forced into a unit. The son trying to calm his mother down. A husband and wife separated. The husband telling us his wife had her second court hearing to secure access to stay in the United States, but the case, out of nowhere, he said dismissed. He says they dismiss your case. It's why you shouldn't come, because they will take you. But immigration lawyer Kessler McFarland says not going is not what one should do either, because then an automatic deportation hold is put on your record.
Right now, the biggest advice I can give to people is make sure you seek advice from an attorney before you do anything. But there are ways that you can appear virtually to your immigration court hearings. How, when, why, whether you're eligible for it or not is very complicated. So that's why I'm saying definitely seek legal advice.
McFarland herself has been in and out of the immigration court the past few weeks and says the entire thing feels like a setup.
It definitely is a trap. What we've been seeing is, and it's happened to some of my clients, where we go to court, the court government attorney is offering to dismiss the case. There is some question as to the legality of what's going on. The law seems to, for some people, yes, absolutely, what they're doing is within their authority. For other people, it's very complicated, but for other people, there is some question about whether they can be placed in this expedited removal process based on their history.
Now, ICE did confirm to us Wednesday they have the authority to arrest individuals who are undocumented, even outside of court hearings. But critics argue that this tactic undermines trust in the system.
Everybody's very scared about what's going on.
Arvelo's complaint was filed on behalf of himself and other Venezuelan citizens subjected to Trump's AEA executive order proclamation. And in this order, he is asking a judge to require the government to provide at least 30 days notice before any removal or transfer. Now, this came as a setback after the Trump administration were handed a victory by the Supreme Court. They stayed a lower court order that blocked the administration from deporting roughly 500,000 migrants from Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. But the thing is, this is not the first time that a Trump-appointed judge has gone against his agenda, both on the local level and as we had witnessed with staunch conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who was appointed to America's highest court back in 2020 by Donald Trump and has voted for major conservative rulings such as striking down abortion rights. But when she decided to vote against the MAGA contingent on certain issues, she was soon cast aside and deemed a traitor. So I can only imagine what will happen with this judge.
This is absolute lunacy from the president. Let me just be blunt about it. Amy Coney Barrett votes with Justices Alito and Thomas, I believe, about 80% of the time. She is responsible for Dobbs. She was one of the, which overturned Roe v. Wade, one of the justices in the majority of that. In addition to the ones you named there, trans service members, deportation for Venezuelans, a host of decisions that went Donald Trump's way. The fact that there are a handful of them that did not, and that's engendering this anger in the president is just simply ridiculous. Because it comes, and I don't think it's in isolation, because it comes a week after blasting the Federalist Society, to whom he owes a debt of gratitude for helping put folks on the bench that cemented his vision as a president. So this is ridiculous. This is the president who truly seems to believe that courts are there to serve him, not conservative values. And it's preposterous. I'm sorry.
Love this video? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch and help us blow past 1 million followers.